What happened when a racist detective kicked Senator John Kennedy in open court? And what followed destroyed that detective's life forever, shocked the entire nation. It began as a heated Senate hearing investigating corruption in law enforcement, a day meant for testimony, not tragedy. Kennedy, a respected but fiery figure, was questioning a local sheriff's department about racial profiling allegations, when tensions escalated into something far more physical and far more shameful. The detective in question, Vincent Cole, was a veteran with a record full of complaints, but he had always managed to avoid discipline till now. As Kennedy pressed him on why nearly every traffic stop he made involved minorities, Cole grew visibly angry. "You don't know what it's like out there," he barked. Kennedy remained calm. "I know what it's like when justice is uneven, and I know abuse when I see it," the courtroom murmured. Cole's fists clenched. He wasn't ready to be challenged. Then it happened. In full view of journalists, staffers, and the public gallery, Cole stood up, muttered a slur under his breath, and kicked John Kennedy in the shin. The room froze. Cameras clicked. A bailiff shouted. Kennedy didn't cry out, but the disbelief on his face said everything. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Cole was immediately restrained. And within seconds, the footage hit the internet. Unleashing a fury no one could contain, Senator Kennedy, ever the Southern gentleman, even when seething, didn't retaliate. Instead, he calmly stood, looked the detective in the eye, and said, "Now the whole country knows who you are." That single sentence hit harder than any punch. The clip was aired across every network within the hour. "Racist cop assaults senator" became the top headline. The footage showed not just violence but hate exposed, raw and unfiltered, on the record. Within hours, Vincent Cole was placed on unpaid leave. His department scrambled to release a statement disavowing his actions. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse by sundown, demanding justice not only for Kennedy, but for every community Cole had patrolled. Social media exploded with hashtag Justice for Kennedy and hashtag Fire Cole Now. Kennedy, meanwhile, refused medical attention. "Let the bruise speak for itself," he told reporters. The next day, Kennedy delivered a statement from the Senate floor, his voice unwavering. "Yesterday, I was kicked by a man who's worn a badge for 20 years. But what he really kicked was the illusion that racism in law enforcement is subtle or gone. It's alive, it's bold. And it just kicked me in front of the American people." The chamber fell silent. Even his opponents sat stunned. The speech went viral. Schools replayed it. News anchors quoted it. The country listened. Vincent Cole tried to issue an apology through his lawyer, claiming he lost his temper and was under stress. But no one was buying it. Investigations into his past were reopened. Suddenly, dozens of suppressed complaints reemerged, many from young black men who had been threatened, harassed, and beaten. One victim said, "He told me no one would believe me, that he was the law." Now, the law was turning on him. Cole wasn't just suspended, he was charged. Civil rights groups filed lawsuits. Congress scheduled emergency hearings on police. Accountability, perhaps the most poetic justice, came quietly. Cole's pension was frozen. His badge was stripped. His wife filed for divorce, citing abuse. Friends distanced themselves. What started as one kick became the unsealing of a life built on hate. Kennedy's leg healed quickly, but Cole's life never would. The man who tried to silence a senator had silenced himself forever, and Senator John Kennedy? He became a symbol, not just for resilience, but for exposure. The man who once quipped folksy one-liners in Senate halls was now a figure of justice. "Sometimes the truth doesn't speak, it kicks," he told a rally days later. "But if you're standing on the side of what's right, you don't fall." The crowd roared, because America had seen the hate. This time, it didn't look away. The Department of Justice soon stepped in, launching a full federal probe into Cole's former department. What they uncovered went beyond one man's misconduct. Years of falsified reports, doctored evidence, and selective arrests formed a pattern. Dozens of convictions were overturned. The DA's office had no choice but to reopen nearly 200 cases. The system that once protected Cole was crumbling brick by brick, because one senator refused to stay silent after a kick. Documentaries followed. Kick that shook the court became a Netflix special within months, featuring firsthand accounts from victims of Cole's abuse, civil rights lawyers, and Kennedy himself. The senator didn't dramatize it. He simply said, "I got kicked, but that was just the headline." The real story is about how many folks got stomped on for years with nobody watching. That single line became iconic, etched into protest signs and campus murals across the country. As national pressure mounted, the governor of the state where Cole served ordered an audit of all active law enforcement agencies. What started as one courtroom act had sparked a statewide reckoning. Training protocols were rewritten. Body cams were mandated. Community oversight boards were empowered. Cole's name became synonymous with the danger of unchecked authority, and Kennedy became a rare Republican hero in liberal circles for standing his ground with dignity. Meanwhile, Cole faced trial not just for assaulting a senator, but for perjury, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations. In court, Kennedy again testified. This time, he didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for every voice Cole had tried to suppress. "When you wear a badge," Kennedy said, "you don't get to choose who deserves dignity. That ain't justice. That's prejudice in uniform." The jury took 2 hours to deliberate. Cole was found guilty on all counts. Kennedy's approval ratings soared across party lines. His refusal to retaliate physically and, instead, used the platform of pain to call for reform earned him bipartisan respect. He appeared on late-night shows, community town halls, and church pulpits, delivering a singular message: what you endure ain't as important as how you respond. The man who had once been known more for wit than war now carried the weight of real change, and the nation noticed. Even in his home state, where Cole had once been considered a hometown hero, the tide turned. Police chiefs began purging their departments of officers with questionable histories. New recruits were now trained in de-escalation and ethics. Kennedy was invited to speak at the State Police Academy's graduation. His closing words: "You don't earn honor by force. You earn it by choosing not to use force when you could." The crowd of cadets stood in thunderous applause. But for Kennedy, it wasn't about fame or political gain. When asked by a reporter if he ever feared being attacked again, he replied, "You can't fix a broken house by staying on the porch. You've got to walk in, get dirty, and tell the termites their time's up." That line became a mantra for reformers everywhere. Protesters began chanting it at rallies. Senators quoted it in speeches. And in schools, kids used it in essays about bravery and justice. Vincent Cole, a disgraced ex-detective behind bars, filed appeals, but each was denied. Alone, abandoned, and remembered only for his disgrace, he watched the world move forward. Without him, and as for Kennedy, he never let that moment define him. Instead, he used it as a catalyst to introduce new legislation on federal oversight of law enforcement. The bill passed with overwhelming support and was named after one of Cole's earliest victims. In the end, when a racist detective kicked John Kennedy in open court, he thought he was asserting dominance. But all he did was expose himself to the nation and ignite a wave of change that would outlive both of them. Because in America, sometimes it takes a public act of hate to spark a national commitment to justice. In this time, justice didn't just arrive. It roared.